Okay, hi everyone and welcome to another video of mine, a long awaited video, my most requested video actually, but also quite a hard video for me to film and kind of get right as well, but I feel like now's the time and I'm ready to kind of share more of my story with you. So yeah, definitely I think this might be a bit of a longer video, so definitely grab a tea, coffee, whatever you like to drink, and we can kind of get into it. So I have kept myself kind of laid back for this video so that I feel a bit more comfortable, because it's going to be a very chatty video. So I'm just in my comfies with some water, my favourite thing to drink basically, and yeah, we're just sat here. We're actually in Keelan's room. I have filmed in here plenty of times before. It's changed over the years, but now it's nice and green. I will kind of I'm going to be doing another video on kind of Keelan's room and baby girl's room, and how I'm kind of, because it's going to be both of their room. If you're new here, then I am pregnant with baby number 2, and she's a baby girl. Obviously I kind of done a pregnancy updates video, I think that like 2 videos ago, something like that, or a video ago. So definitely check that out if you want to see how my pregnancy is progressing. But yeah, but this video is going to kind of be talking about that, but the mental health side of this pregnancy, and also just my mental health journey. So I think about 2 years ago now, I did a whole video on my postpartum psychosis. So after my firstborn, when he was born, I was suffered with postpartum psychosis, a condition that really people should talk about more, because I had no idea that it was a thing, and it was a very scary ordeal. I knew about kind of postnatal depression and stuff like that, but that was kind of it. I'd never heard of postpartum psychosis. I haven't suffered with like severe mental health issues previously, so it was a real shock when I got postpartum psychosis. I had never been on medication, never suffered really bad. Everyone goes through their own mental health journey, so I'm not going to sit here and say I never had any mental health problems. I had issues in my life for sure, but they were always issues that I dealt with myself. I did deal with anxiety, but not on the level of that I dealt with in this condition. It was like a whole new level, a whole new thing. When I done my last video, postpartum psychosis, which I'll link it down below so you can check that out. That was about 2 years ago, and I was about 4 months postpartum, so I was still really fresh, out of like I was still in the situation. I was still suffering with not so much some of the severe symptoms, but I was kind of recovering. So I don't really look back on that video too much, because I find it quite hard to watch and see myself, because I don't recognize that person. I was getting better at that point, and one of the things I really wanted to do was to raise awareness, and that's what I did. And with that video I helped a lot of people. It seems like I've had a lot of thank yous and a lot of messages, so it's great. I don't regret that video at all. It's great, but it is hard to watch because I know I was still struggling at that point. Whereas now I am 2 years down the line, expecting my next child, and I feel like I can talk a bit more clearly and have a bit more clarity about the whole situation, and kind of talk just a bit more clearly about it, really. Postpartum psychosis. So let's talk about what it is. It is a condition that affects mothers postpartum. Right after, it can be anywhere from right after they've given birth to like months down the line. You could have very severe symptoms or very mild symptoms. So if you're ever feeling like you need to talk to someone, you're having some sort of hallucinations, you are just really low in your mood, and it's just something's not right after baby, then go and seek help, because it might be something very mild, but it could be something really severe and life-threatening, which is postpartum psychosis. It took me a while to kind of differentiate symptoms from illness to actual motherhood, because it was my first baby. I just thought it was motherhood. I just thought what I was dealing with was what I was going to be dealing with forever, and it was very scary. But some of the thoughts and feelings I were having were legit thoughts and feelings of a new mum, but they were just enhanced a lot. The basic story, I'm just going to talk basically because I spoke about it before, but the basic story, when I had Keelan, I had a very long, hard, traumatic birth. It was 40 hours long. I ended in a C-section, which was something that took me a long time to mentally recover from as well. And for me, it was straight after birth. I remember them, I had the cesarean, I was completely out of it. I'd had 2 days of labour, like strong labour as well, and I was completely out of it. And I remember when they finally gave him to me, I was so tired, and I just remember just thinking, it's not my baby. How do I know this is my baby? Because I haven't actually seen him come out, and just all these like thoughts and feelings, which I think partly is normal as well if you have that kind of situation. But it was just something that festered with me. I carried on. I stayed in hospital for a couple of days, and then when I left the hospital, that's when things really kind of kicked in. I started hearing like baby noises and cries when he wasn't crying, which is also a normal thing called phantom crying, yeah, I think it's phantom crying. And basically, as a new mum, you will experience, you're like half asleep, and then you'll think that your baby's crying, and you'll be like, is the baby crying? You'll be in the shower and you'll be like, is the baby crying? And you just always hear them cry for some reason. But my senses were on overload, and it was like that all the time, and I couldn't shut it down. I couldn't sleep for fear of something happening to him. Again, it is normal for a new mum, but I was wired to the point I just could not sleep. Like, even when I tried to, like, he was settled, he was down, he'd be laying down. He was quite a good sleeper, quite a good baby with sleeping, and he'd be settled, he'd be right next to me, and I would literally sit up in bed like wide awake. I was physically exhausted, my eyes were tired, my body was tired, I was so exhausted, but my mind wasn't. And it was so annoying to need to go to sleep but physically cannot, like, not being able to go to sleep. And I would just sit up like wide awake, and then I'd try and read a book, but I couldn't focus on that book. And I'd try and like write something down. Like, I always feel like writing lists and notes or stuff like that will just get it onto pen and paper, and it kind of leaves my mind and I can sleep. But it wasn't something that was working for me, and I was just wired. And then I remember there was a point where there was like the next day after not getting any sleep, I just gave Keelan to Craig, and I was like, I can't do this. I can't do this anymore. And I remember just leaving him with Craig, going into the garden by myself and just pacing up and down that garden, trying to register my thoughts, because I couldn't. They were so muddled. I couldn't like think, and I couldn't think who I was. It was like simple things. I couldn't think how to dress myself, how to, you know, just function. And for me, obviously as a new mum as well, it was so scary, because I was like, how am I going to get through life now looking after another human being when I can't even look after myself at the moment. I had the added pressure and worry of looking after myself because I had the cesarean. And it was, you know, this big scar that I now had, and it was so sore, and then what we later realized is it was actually infected, which added to my delirium, and it was just, that was like a whole other worry. And you know, it didn't, you know, it's, you know, I had to, in my head I was like, I have to keep this clean, I have to take my medication, I have to make sure I've got some painkillers so that I can still look after my child, as well as all the normal other kind of new mum things that you have to do. So it was all like a big worry, and it all just, I just kind of crumbled down. And then I just remember having this big conversation with my best friend, and I just crumbled, and I was, see, I spoke to my doctor recently about this, and she was like, you know, are you suicidal? Like, are you having any of those thoughts? And I spoke to her and I said, you know what, I don't think I was ever really suicidal, because really my thoughts were focused on surviving, but my delirium and my delusions, sorry, were that I wasn't in the real world. I was in a dreamland, and the only way to wake up from that dreamland and get back to my family, like my real son and my real husband, was to kill myself. So it was more of a, like, it's weird. Yes, I was suicidal, but it was also like a survival thing. So I don't know what you'd call that really. I never really wanted to die. Do you know what I mean? That's not what I wanted. I didn't want that. So it's hard to say that I was suicidal, but I was having suicidal thoughts. There were some moments that I did feel suicidal, because it just got so much, like the pressure, the pain, just everything, that I just wanted to give up. But I had that mother's instinct with Keelan. It was so strong that I was like, no, I can't do that. I have a baby boy to look after, so I need to figure this out and get better. But it would be like on an endless loop. I'd be like really low, but then on survival mode, really low, and then on survival mode, and it was just exhausting. By the time that I was taken to hospital, like my husband, and it was actually my husband, my dad, and my best friend took me to not A&E, but they so I think the first week after you have a baby, you can go straight back to the labour ward, and you get like instant help. And yeah, by the time I got there, I was just exhausted. I don't think I've ever felt exhaustion like I had when I was ill. And I would just keep talking. Like, I remember the doctors and nurses were looking at me like, okay, you need to sit down and calm down. I was like, I can't sit down. How can I sit down? Like, I need to do this, I need to do that, blah, 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 blah. And then I'll be writing stuff down, and then I'll be like, all right, what I need to do is I need to, you know, get something to kill myself, basically. And then it would be on a thing, and I'll be like, no, why am I doing this? Why would I be doing this? And I would literally be talking on, like, fast forward, to the point where they couldn't even understand me sometimes. In the midst of that, I'd be cracking jokes as well, which people were just so confused about. And you know, sometimes we laugh about it now, because sometimes you have to laugh about it and take that. Keela wants to come up. So yeah, so it was, yeah, it was difficult, but I got the help I needed. In the end, oh yeah, another thing is, like, I kept going, like, saying I was like on a loop. I was on a loop, and that's how it felt like, because I was so exhausted. I was just on a constant loop of, I'd get to this like point where I'd be like, oh, I'm exhausted. Okay, I'm back in the room, I'm gonna go to sleep, and I would be like that for like 2 minutes. And then I'd be up again, and I'd be going and going and going and going, and I'd be saying the same thing, and then I would have an anxiety attack and then slow down and be like, okay, I'm back in the room. Yeah, I'm okay. What was that about? I remember sitting there to Craig and be like, what was that about? Sorry, I'm just a bit crazy. I'm a bit crazy. And then I would go and go and go and go again. It was quite horrible to feel, and also horrible to see for people around me, you know, my loved ones, to see that and not to be able to do anything about it. Quite difficult, but yeah, in the end, I was back in the labour ward. I was getting treated for my infection, and then I was then taken to the most local mother and baby unit to me, and I got the help that I needed. It took me a long time to kind of get out of that rut. There was a lot of new delusions that I had, you know, and thoughts and feelings. I thought people were attacking me. I thought I was being locked up against my will, when really I was voluntary. But I still felt like people, my husband included, were trying to just lock me up and lock me up, throw me away and throw away the key type thing, which wasn't the case at all. But it was just how you kind of feel. You kind of feel attacked. I felt there were people putting thoughts into my head. It's weird because I don't really feel like, sometimes yes, but I don't really feel like I was hearing voices. Like I did sometimes, I think. Again, it is blurry because it was your mind kind of melts afterwards, but it was more just the feeling of something, like the feeling of like this greater power pushing me towards doing certain things. So I would have to say certain things at a certain time. I would have to, like, one of them obviously was being suicidal. I would have to do that, and it was an absolute need, like, and people around me just couldn't understand that. And then certain actions, you know, like, I don't know, like having to just do something at a certain time, you know. And yeah, and then it took a while, took a couple of weeks to get me on the right medication. I think they tried me out with a few different medications, but I ended up on, what did I end up on? Promethazine. So that's what they put me on straight away to calm the anxiety and the nerves and I was literally, I had anxiety attacks so often and so much that I would like be shaking with exhaustion, because you shake after an anxiety attack anyway, after like a panic attack, but because your body goes through so much physically. But because I was having them so often, I was so exhausted, and so they put me on promethazine, and that kind of calmed the anxiety, which allowed me to get just that little bit more mental clarity on things. So I was actually on promethazine. Is a strong drug, I later realised. When I speak to people, they were like, oh, you was on promethazine, what, like 1 a day? I was like, no, 4. I was on 4 a day to start with, which is a lot. It's a big drug, but is what I needed. Even that, when I was first on 4, like I could have done with more, because I was still so like high and having so much anxiety. But over the weeks, I think over like 4 or 5 weeks, they lowered me to 3 a day, to 2 a day, to 1. I think it was 1. They dropped 1 a week. But I was on 4 a day at first. Then I was on, I don't know what drug, like for the psychotic things they put me on first, but I ended up on olanzapine. That seemed to help me. I definitely at first, when I started getting a bit more, again, mental clarity, I still was having like hallucination type things. There was like moments where I was in my bedroom in the mother and baby unit where I felt like I was floating off my bed up to the ceiling. There were other times, you know, I could smell certain things. I remember sitting down as well in the kind of like the reception room where all the kind of other patients can sit and be together. It's like the living room type thing. I remember sitting there watching the TV, and the TV would change colour. So I remember at one point it was going purple and orange, and I was like, something's wrong with the TV, but no one else noticed it. And I was like, is this just because we're in the unit? Like, is this how the TV is? But it would change like colour, but it would only be the 2 colours, and it was so strange. Like it wasn't like it was you know, like sometimes if you've got a wacky TV. Sorry about that, my battery died. I've got a new camera and I'm still trying to learn how to use it and all of that. But yeah, so I was just talking about my hallucinations. Basically, yeah, so you know, the TV would go different colours, and yeah, sometimes if you've got wacky TV, you're kind of like, oh, it just is going a bit funny. But these were hallucinations of just different colours. I would see different colours. I would see different textures and tones and just all sorts and all. But the biggest thing for me was the thoughts and feelings of someone trying to attack me and take my baby. And with all of that, it took me a long time to kind of really bond with Keelan. Now, I definitely had a mother's instinct, and I loved him so much. I loved him just too much, it felt like sometimes, you know. But with everything going on, it also, there was like a barrier there as well of just not wanting to be around him. And it was kind of a barrier where I was scared. It was a kind of a barrier where I wanted to protect him, but I wanted to protect him from me. And that is, as a new mum, like such a horrible feeling to not want to be around your child for fear of hurting them yourself. I thought the best thing for him was me not being around him, and it's just horrible. Like, it's horrible to think back on it as well, because like now I know I'm the best thing for him and I love him so much, and I would do anything for him, for my kids, you know. I've got 2 now. But it was a hard time to kind of get through that barrier and to allow myself to know that it was okay and that I was a good mum. I also then, when I was getting better, there was a lot of kind of work, like mentally, you know, in therapy, to kind of allow myself to not feel guilty about all the thoughts and feelings I had, and, you know, to allow myself to know that I am a good mum. You know, like, I just felt like I was just a horrible mum. I didn't really get to spend the first 3 months with my baby, you know. I didn't get to do all those things and bond with them and with him and do all of that. And I did in my own way, but not really. And I think I'll forever hold some sort of like guilt about that. Guilt is the wrong word, I don't know, because I know now it wasn't my fault. But especially back then, I was like, these are my thoughts, my feelings, they're from my brain, so it's me, you know. on some level I must think and feel these things. And you know, it took a lot of people a lot of time to kind of tell me that no, this isn't your fault kind of thing. It's a chemical imbalance, and all of that. And I'm mentally quite stubborn. I think everything quite stubborn, and you know, so you know, even when people told me, I was like, yeah, but it's still me. I clearly don't love my son, or I clearly this, I clearly that. But that's not the case at all. So if anyone is going through this and feels guilty on any level, whether you've had postpartum psychosis or another mental illness or anything else, it is not your fault. Like, you, and I'm sure you know somewhere deep down, know that you love your kids and would do anything for your kids, but you also you're a human and you have feelings and thoughts, and sometimes you can't control those feelings and thoughts as much as you try, but somewhere in there is your real kind of thoughts and feelings. And my God, do I love my baby boy so much. Like, he is the apple of my eye, and I gush about it so much now because I couldn't gush about it before, and I don't think I'll ever stop gushing about it because I just love him so much. He is just an absolute character, and if I say so myself, me and Craig, my husband, have done a great job with him, so I'll always be proud of that, considering what we've been through as well. He is such a good boy. He has his moments, but on the whole he is a good boy. We are very lucky with him. Anyway, so I've got a few notes here just to kind of keep me on track, because I could just ramble on about my story and this and that, but I want to kind of keep this a bit structured, this video. So next I kind of wanted to just talk about my medication story. So when I done my last video, I was about 4 months in, so I would have still been heavily medicated. I then kind of vlogged the process throughout the year, and I slowly came off, like came down from my medication. I was on, I don't think I ended up telling you, so I was on the promethazine, which I came off quite quickly. That was like a 2-month thing. And then I was on the olanzapine, a high dose of that, I think 250 milligrams. And then I was on sertraline. So after about 2-3 months in the unit, so postpartum basically, because I was in the unit from a week after Keelan was born, I obviously with a massive high you have a massive low, and I was depressed. I was like, really, I've never felt that low before. It really opened my eyes to mental health and depression, and what it can really do and how real it can really be. And sometimes I was like, I'm in a hole, like a deep dark black hole, but it wasn't like, oh, I'm having like a really bad day. It was like that's it, that's like, I don't see any way out kind of thing. So I had that low, and so I was on the sertraline. I kind of went up that over the course of like a month. So I went from 50 milligrams, because you can't go like straight on to 200 milligrams. I went from 50 to 200 over the course of a month basically. So I was on the highest dose that you can be on sertraline. They almost put me on lithium, which is quite a strong antidepressant. But I really didn't want to go on that, so I really pushed myself to do everything that I could to kind of feel better. And it didn't work at first, you know. I would do things like go out in the garden and go for a walk and try and see friends and just try and do things that would lift my mood, and it didn't work at first, but then it did work, and it kept me off of the lithium. I was on enough sertraline, I think, and then for me, like me as a person, it doesn't work for everyone, but for me, I think I just had to then mentally push myself that bit further, and do, like, actively do things. For me, I like to be proactive. I like to just, like, try and do things that make me feel like I'm being proactive of a situation. So doing stuff, it didn't help at first, but then eventually it did. So when people say do meditation, do mindfulness, do this, and you, like, you could definitely sit there and just be like, oh, this is a load of bollocks, this is doing nothing. Give it like several weeks and you'll start to feel something. It's very little, a little spark, but then that spark gets bigger. And now, you know, I go out, like, gardening. If you follow me on Instagram, gardening is just my joy. Like, I love to get out in the garden, get out in the sun, and that just brings me so much joy now. So that tiny little spark that I had grew, and it just gives me so much joy now. So yeah, I just would recommend that, you know, if you're like struggling and you're on like heavy medication as well, just do something. Do something that you think might give you joy. It might not work at first, but over time you have to just be proactive and just keep going and sticking at it. And I still slip back sometimes, and I'm like, oh, but then I know what kind of brings me joy, kind of thing. So yeah, and then so I had that, and then once I was on quite a high dose, I had that, like, of all of it. I was on that for like a couple of months, and then I slowly took away, like, it would be like 50 milligrams per thing. So it would be like 50 milligrams of olanzapine for like a month, and then it would be 50 milligrams of sertraline for a month, and then it would be 50 grams of olanzapine. So I'd be on the same dose of olanzapine for like 2 months, and then come down, and then the same dose of sertraline, which is the antidepressant, I was on for like 2 months. And then you know, but it would be something each kind of month-ish over the course of a year. And then it got to last year, I think. What would it have been? I'm trying to think of the timeline now, because we're 2022 now. Beginning of so beginning of 2021, January, is when I basically came off everything. I was just on 50, no, not even that, 25, so half a tablet of sertraline. I was on that a day. I don't even think I was taking it a day. I think I was taking it like every other day in the end. But with the hit of COVID, my appointments kind of went silly. Like, I didn't see anyone. I would have just phone call appointments. For me, I was okay at that point, so maybe that's why I didn't get to see anyone. Like, I was okay with that. I think they might have still been seeing certain people if they needed it. I don't really know, but I wasn't seeing, I mean, it kind of just tailed off a little bit, my medication. Unfortunately, it's not the best thing, and I wouldn't recommend this to anyone, but it got to about 2 months of not actually talking to anyone, like, and previously when I spoke to someone, my doctor, they said that I probably on the next call I could come off medication completely, but we'll see how it goes. And I had that for the last like 2 calls, so for like 4 months they kept saying that, and I by that point felt like I could come off medication. I was like, I'm just on this to like ease the process now. I don't feel like I'm in that hole anymore. I feel like I can come off, but you can't just come off medication because that can be dangerous. You can like slip. So yeah, but after 4 months of that and not really hearing much, I then just kind of took myself off the medication. I just stopped taking it. That one last pill, I stopped taking it, and it was good. I was okay, you know. I knew I wouldn't have done it if they hadn't said it before, and they were only keeping me on it in the end to kind of ease, not just ease the process, but because COVID had hit, depression and mental health had gone up, so they were just a bit worried about me. But I knew that I was coping okay. by this point I wasn't having any, you know, I was just kind of back to normal. No hallucinations, no nothing like that. I was off antipsychotics. It was just depression, and I was okay. So I knew it was okay. I was just waiting for the okay. So I just took in like, yeah, end of January, this time last year basically, I just took myself off the medication and just stopped taking it because I didn't want to go, basically I finished it, didn't want to go back to the pharmacy to get another lot, and just stopped taking it. I wouldn't recommend that to everyone, but it worked for me and I was okay, I was fine. Always talk to your doctor. But it was just the situation with the pandemic and so on. And yeah, and then this year, like, so that year, 2021, was just, yeah, I was medication free. It felt really good to be medication free. I've said in my first video back, so first video of 2022, you know, I was just saying I didn't really work much here on YouTube or on any of my social media because I just took that year to be with Keelan and focus on other things and focus on me and my mental health. When I was ill, I really threw myself into my videos and my work because that's what I always knew and always loved, and I still love doing it. But I had to find that balance of being a mum and doing what I love as well and making it work. And it was just a year of trying to figure that out, and I wasn't going to be putting any pressure on myself. I had come so far already. I didn't want to put myself back, so I didn't do a lot of YouTube videos. I did do a lot of filming, but I just never got a lot of I just never put it all together. I never edited and focused on it, you know, because I was focusing on other things. So, and I don't regret that. That's what I needed and that's what I did. But now I do really miss doing my videos, so I'm going to carry on doing videos now. But I'm not going to put pressure on myself either because, again, I've come so far. Sorry, the filming keeps cutting out, so my angle probably has changed quite a bit in this, but I'm gonna try and wrap this video up in a minute. So yeah, talking about my medication. So yeah, so the past year I've just been focusing on myself and doing just not on medication and just been doing things to just help me mentally. One of those things was going into like a part-time job that was kind of outside of this, and I really enjoyed that until I got pregnant. That's what I was saying. I've got baby number 2 on the way, so again, like, I'm not putting pressure on myself, but I do want to get back into this kind of thing that I love doing, like content creating. But yeah, the last year was medication free and really good. It was kind of, as soon as I came off the medication is when we kind of decided that we want to start trying. We actually decided beforehand, so I was off medication in January 2021, but in November 2020 is when we kind of had the discussion of, you know what, like, I think we want another one. And we kind of had that baby talk and stuff, and we're like, okay, let's get through Christmas and then let's start trying. But we were kind of like, not trying but not being careful over like the Christmas period, but it didn't happen. It didn't happen for about 10 months, so we were trying for a little while. But I was really happy when I came off medication in the January because I was just off medication, and I just felt better to get pregnant. Not that it's like, I think it's still fine to be, I think it's okay to be on medication when to get pregnant, but pregnancy throws up a lot of hormones, so it would have been something that I think might have set me back a little bit. So yeah, it was good, it was fine. We had a nice summer, and and then I got pregnant in the September. And so now I'm going to talk a little bit about kind of becoming pregnant, and kind of my thoughts about before becoming pregnant, and then when I have become pregnant, and then also about medication. I'll start with medications, to be fair. So because I've had a few questions about it, I'm not on any, so I am in my second trimester and I'm not on any medication. So I come off the medication, and obviously when you're pregnant you go straight into kind of that prenatal thing. You see your midwives, but on top of all of that I'm seeing doctors. I haven't seen any therapists or psychiatrists yet. They said that maybe it could be something along the line, but they think I'm dealing really well with just everything, and they don't want to put me on any medication yet. It might be a case, it's all kind of like just evaluate. I have an appointment every week, whether it's a phone call or in hospital appointment, and it's all just a case of seeing how it goes. And I think if anything, if I do go on medication, it will be in the third trimester, kind of before I get, you know, before kind of labour, and it'll be a small dose of probably olanzapine, just to make sure, like as a preventative, to level me out during kind of labour and postnatally. But as it stands, I'm not on anything, which makes me happy. I will say a good plus about not being on the medication, I definitely found that when I came off the medication, I dropped like a stone within like a month, 2 months. I definitely lost weight, and then over the summer last year I lost even more weight because I was just eating better and so on. I still wasn't where I wanted to be, but that was just a real big thing. Like it's just like something that I noticed. Now it's not something that I wanted to come off the medication for. I wanted to come off medication for clarity, and just to, kind of just like a mindful thing of knowing that I can have my mind back without needing medication. It was just more that for me. But it is known that medication like what I was on does make you put on weight, because it just makes you eat more as well. And I definitely put on weight, and I really struggled with that mentally as well. However, over last year, over 2021, I lost that weight, a big part of that weight, which made me really happy. And then I've lost even more weight by getting pregnant. So because I had a lot of morning sickness and stuff, I kind of have dropped, like you can see it in my face. I have lost some more weight, and mentally, like I definitely had to I struggled with the weight gain a lot at first, and then I came to that kind of realization like before I came off the medication, but definitely during last year, something I very much worked on was that what is, you know, weight. As long as I'm healthy, then I'm happy. I really got to a point where I did care about how I looked like. You can't say you don't. I think everyone does. It's like wired into us. But I found peace in what I looked like. I was like, I'm coming on to 30. Yes, I've got a bit of mum podge, but like that's okay kind of thing. And I just came to terms with it and was quite happy. It's obviously always nice to lose a bit extra, and just feel like myself. Like I definitely feel at a good, like I'm not the size, obviously I'm not the size 6 I used to be with a big bump, but like I'm not the tiny Christina that I used to be, but I am at a point that I'm really happy with now. So I'm kind of like at that good sweet spot where I'm happy where I am, and like I don't need to be like I never was someone that needed to be stick thin. I was just naturally quite slim and slender anyway. But it was difficult. But maybe I'll do a whole video on like my weight gain and loss story, because I think it's quite an important thing to talk about, because so many women, especially men as well, but women especially, like struggle with weight. And I think all different sizes are so beautiful. You just have to know how to like dress yourself and feel confident in yourself. And also it's a mindfulness thing, like it's a mental thing. Like you just need to know how to love yourself. Just something that I had to learn over the last 2 years in general anyway, is to love myself. And it comes and goes, you know. Sometimes you have a bad day, not just with my weight and how I look, but mentally as well. I feel like a really crap everything, wife, mums, everything, you know, and that's okay. And then you work on yourself to get to a good place again. It's a constant work in progress. But you know, it's important. I'm going to stop rambling about that now. Yeah, so before getting pregnant, it was a difficult decision, to be honest. But it was something that I really wanted, something I always say to just everyone, and like my doctors and nurses and midwives and all sorts, is that my want for more children was greater than my fear of it. So you still have that fear, like going through what I went through. It's you fear it, like you do. I fear the really long and intense and traumatic labour. I fear the mental side of things, you know, that I'm gonna have postpartum psychosis. I remember that feeling of just I was never going to get back to myself again, and I always thought if I ever had to do that again, I don't know whether I'd come out of it. Like I would just kind of be stuck in it. Like it took a lot of mental work to come out of those delusions and stuff. But I also feel like I've done it once and I'm strong. I've proved that I'm strong. Like the strongest thing you can do is battle your own mind. Like that takes a lot. And I've done that. And for the sake of our family and to grow our family and to be as happy as we are now, like we're so happy now, and I love my little family, and I want to grow my family, so that's what we're going to do. And if I have to go through that again, I will. I would do anything for my kids and my family, and you know, I would do it again. I don't want to do it again, and I actually don't feel like I will have to do that again mentally. But it is a possibility. I have a 50% chance of getting postpartum psychosis again, which is a high chance, and it's not something that I can kind of control. Like it might just happen. I do have a lot of people saying, oh, you'll be all right this time, you'll be fine. And yeah, like it's different situations, different so many things are different, you know, so it's not going to happen. But it wasn't just a situation thing, it was also a chemical imbalance. I can't control that, so there is still a scare of it happening. However, I do agree that my mental state is that bit stronger. Had a few things to deal with over the course of this pregnancy which have kind of broken me down a little bit, but I feel like I'm strong enough to do it again. If I need to do it again, I will do it again. I don't want to do it again, and I'm doing everything I can not to do it again, you know. I'm taking care of myself, and like mentally, physically, and you know, I go to the doctors every appointment I go to, I tell them everything. Like, sometimes they must think you're right, you're a bit of an oversharer, and I've always been an oversharer anyway, but it's better safe than sorry in my eyes. Like, I'll just tell them everything I'm feeling, thinking, going through, but I think they also appreciate that as well. So, because it, you know, my little team know everything then, so whatever happens will happen, and I know, I have faith that whatever happens, it will happen. Whatever happens will happen, but I have people around me to get me through it, and I have faith in myself to get through it as well. So for me, it's all worth it. Scary as, but worth it. Like, I can't wait for baby girl and to have all those memories with Keelan and baby girl, you know, in the garden. Just, I really appreciate all the small things, like just playing in the garden and hearing them laugh, and just like all the little things, like little cuddles, and you take every moment. And, you know, I don't want to miss out on those moments out of fear of my mental health. The fear is still there, but I want it so bad, and I am quite a strong-willed, strong-headed, I've been told anyway. I don't think I'm that strong-headed, but I've been told. I know I'm stubborn, but I'm a strong-willed, strong-headed person, so I can get through whatever. And that's what you need to, anyone out there, you need to remember, especially if you're going through stuff and you've been through it before and you've been battling it, just remember how strong you are. Like, that takes strength to get through stuff day to day. Like, you know, there were times where I just couldn't, I just didn't want to even get out of bed, I just didn't see the point of things, but I got through it, and so can you, you know, just doing those little things. And it's just that build up of all the little things that help. It's not just doing mindfulness, it's taking your medication, talking to your therapist, doing mindfulness, and finding joy in something like gardening, you know. But yeah, I'm not gonna lie that it's been scary to it's been scarier to be pregnant than to plan the pregnancy. Like, planning pregnancy, I wasn't getting pregnant, and it's like, oh, okay, and then I was getting more focused on getting pregnant, and wasn't focused on too much anyway. I still had that fear, but I was like, okay, like, let's just deal with that when it comes to it. And now I'm pregnant, the closer I get to labour and the end of the pregnancy, the scarier it has become. And it is difficult to kind of, my anxiety has gone up, my dreams, I always suffer with quite vivid dreams in pregnancy anyway, but with everything that's happened, it's just a bit of a trigger as well, so I have to keep an eye on them. Luckily they've been okay, since I had quite bad dreams at the end of the first trimester, beginning of the second trimester. I'm now kind of end of second trimester, and it's kind of leveled out, so I'm happy and okay with that. But yeah, I've just got to keep going, keep talking. I'm doing everything. I'm trying to go for a VBAC, vaginal birth after cesarean. But I could end up with a cesarean, and I'm kind of just mentally preparing myself for whatever, you know, like whether I do end up with another cesarean, I'm preparing myself mentally for that, preparing myself mentally for the pain of labour. I never actually push Keelan out, so I'm trying to prepare myself for that as much as I can, and all of that jazz. But yeah, it's hard to like talk a lot about this, because it's good to bounce off of someone who's asking questions, but I think I've answered all the questions that you have asked in my Instagram questions. But definitely comment down below or find me on Instagram, ask me whatever questions you want. I do my best to try and get back to anyone who asks, especially about mental health and stuff. I try and reply to everyone, so, you know, because it's you know, it's helpful for people, and for me, you know, as well. So if you have any questions, any more questions, then just fire away. Just always, yeah, always feel free to ask. But I think that concludes this video. Because it's been so choppy, I don't know how long this video even is going to be, but I know it's going to be a long one because I think I've been sat here for probably best part of an hour just chatting away with you guys. I hope I've answered everything for you. But yeah, like I said, just shoot away any other questions to me over on my Instagram. And yeah, that's it. So yeah, thank you for, if you've made it to the end of this video, thank you for listening and yeah, catching up with me. And yeah, I'm trying to do videos every Sunday now, so 1 video a week, but I might miss a Sunday here and there. Just depends on how life, you know, what life throws at me, because I am pregnant with a lot of mental health appointments, or just midwife appointments, with a 2-year-old, all at home as well. So yeah, I will speak to you in my next video. Until then, take care of yourself, and yeah, I hope this was helpful. I'm gonna go. Bye guys.